22 years is it's just a very strange amount of time.
Oh, yeah. It really is. I mean, it's an entire generational cycle.
Right. If you really think about it, a kid born the day Arsenal's legendary Invincibles lifted the Premier League trophy back in 2004, they could have graduated university by now.
Yeah, they could have started a career, had a kid of their own even.
Exactly. Just an entire generation of waiting and honestly suffering for that fan base before seeing the club win the league again.
Absolutely. And when you think back to that 2004 era, there is this massive expectation of what an Arsenal championship team is actually supposed to look like.
Yeah, it's supposed to be overwhelming, right? Like chaotic, beautiful attacking football.
That's the DNA.
Yeah.
But here we are at the end of the 2025-2026 season, and Arsenal are finally Premier League champions again.
But if you are looking for that old chaotic magic, you are looking in the exact wrong place.
Oh, completely. It's a totally different beast now.
So today we are digging into this really fascinating stack of sources for our deep dive. We've got match reports from Critical Games, live feed commentary, and this rigorously detailed tactical breakdown from Football Bunseki.
Yeah, that Bunseki report is incredibly thorough.
It really is. And our mission today is to figure out exactly how manager Mikel Arteta broke this 22-year curse.
And spoiler alert, it wasn't through a sheer volume of shots or wild end-to-end games.
No, not at all. It was through this surgical, almost suffocating tactical evolution. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to really understand this championship season, you basically have to look past the goal highlight reels.
Right, because if you just watch the goals on social media, you completely miss the underlying machinery that actually won the title.
Exactly. The foundational philosophy that changed everything for Arsenal this year revolves around this concept called four-phase control.
Which is super interesting because, I've definitely been guilty of just looking at possession stats to see who dominated a match.
Well, we all do that. It's
Yeah.
the easiest metric to grab.
Right. You see a team holding like 65% of the ball, and you automatically assume they were just in the driver's seat the whole time.
Yeah, a lot of us do, but elite European football has actually shifted away from that metric. Just holding the ball isn't enough anymore.
Because what really matters is what happens when the ball changes hands.
Precisely. Arsenal's massive tactical leap under Arteta this year focused intensely on the moments immediately after the ball is lost or won.
The transition.
The transition, yeah. At the highest level, matches are essentially decided across four distinct phases. You have organized attack, attacking transition, defensive transition, and structured defense.
And reading through the Football Bunseki breakdown, it seems like defensive transition is the defining phase for this specific team.
Oh, it is their absolute obsession. Under Arteta, Arsenal have built a side designed to win the 2 to 3 seconds right after possession changes.
So the pressure arrives instantly.
Instantly. And a huge part of this is the midfield dynamic. Specifically, the use of Martin Zubimendi operating as a civil pivot.
Okay, let's break that term down for the listener because, single pivot sounds like a figure skating move or something. What does that actually look like on the pitch?
Well, think of Zubimendi as a bouncer at a nightclub.
Okay, I like that.
He sits deep, right in front of the defensive line, acting as the lone anchor. His job is to dictate who gets past and to sweep up trouble before it ever reaches the center backs.
But because he's so crucial, I imagine opponents naturally try to press high and assign a man to shadow him, right?
Yeah, constantly. They try to completely take him out of the game.
Which is where Declan Rice comes in. The analysis highlights how Rice drops down as the third man. I found this part so fascinating.
It's brilliant tactical adjustment.
Yeah. If the bouncer is heavily guarded, Rice basically abandons his higher position and drops deep to offer a completely new passing lane.
Right, he creates a 3 versus 2 numerical advantage down there.
Offering a safety valve for the goalkeeper, David Raya, to just bypass the pressure entirely.
It is incredibly fluid, and it requires a massive amount of tactical discipline. Rice isn't just dropping back for the sake of it.
He's reading the game.
Exactly. He's calculating the exact moment Zubimendi is marked out of the play.
Reading through all these tactical maneuvers, the best analogy I can think of for Arsenal's setup this year is a boa constrictor.
A boa constrictor. Okay, that's an interesting visual. How so?
Well, a boa constrictor doesn't overwhelm its prey with lightning speed or chaotic violence like a cheetah or a lion would.
Right. It doesn't chase you down.
Exactly. It just slowly squeezes every time the prey makes a safe backward pass. That is them exhaling. And the moment they do, Arsenal's front line takes 2 synchronized steps forward.
The pitch literally shrinks.
Yeah. When an opponent receives the ball, they look up, and the forward pass is already blocked. The square pass invites an immediate tackle.
So Arsenal just slowly squeezes the options out of the pitch until the opponent is forced into a rushed, low-value decision. That is a brilliant way to visualize it, and it perfectly explains the emotional experience of the fans this year.
Oh, the fans must have been going crazy.
Yeah, if you were sitting in the stands at the Emirates this season, or even just watching from your living room, the games might have actually felt uncomfortably static or tight.
I mean, if you're a longtime football fan, Arsenal without attacking flair sounds like a betrayal of their DNA. The sources note how stressed out the crowd was during these matches.
The fans were terrified. Because when a team isn't creating chance after chance, the absence of chaos makes the game feel incredibly tense.
But the tension you felt as a fan was born from patience, not fragility.
Right. Arsenal traded attacking spontaneity for calculated rigidity.
Mm.
They weren't giving up chances, but they also weren't creating wild open shootouts.
They were just tightening the grip.
Exactly. Just tightening the grip.
What's fascinating to me is how specific players had to essentially reprogram their instincts to fit into this rigid structure. They had to suppress their natural urge to try something flashy.
What's fascinating here is the brilliance of Leandro Trossard's role in this exact system. Because Martin Odegaard missed time with injuries this season.
Right, which is a huge blow.
Huge. But Trossard became this vital puzzle piece. He would drift inside from the left wing to utilize the space left by aggressive high presses.
So if a team like Manchester City pressed high and left a pocket of empty space between their midfield and defense,
Trossard would just slide into that pocket, receive the ball, and instantly switch the play to the other side of the pitch.
wow.
He was the key to unlocking that calculated rigidity and turning it into a sudden, lethal attack.
But, I mean, theory is nothing without execution. If we just talk about calculated rigidity and four-phase control, it sounds like an academic exercise.
Yeah, you might be listening to this thinking, did they just pass the ball sideways for 38 games?
Exactly. We have to look at the moments when this boa constrictor actually struck, because this system resulted in some spectacular, violent bursts of goals against fierce rivals.
It certainly wasn't all 1-0 grinders. When the trap worked, it was lethal.
The moment it became clear the squeeze was actually a weapon was the North London Derby against Tottenham Hotspur.
What a match.
A 4-1 absolute dismantling of Spurs. And the standout star of that game wasn't a veteran. It was Ebereki Eze on his Derby debut.
Dropping a hat-trick in your first North London Derby is the stuff of instant legend.
Unbelievable performance. He scores in the 41st minute off a Declan Rice assist, bangs another one in the 46th minute right after halftime from Jurrien Timber,
Just relentless.
and then caps it off in the 76th minute with an assist from Trossard. But what the Football Benseki report points out is how those goals happen.
Right, the underlying stats.
Arsenal only had 57% possession. They didn't dominate the ball, they dominated the errors.
Yeah, the press forced Spurs into making blind, panicky passes in their own half.
And Eze was just waiting in the passing lanes to intercept and punish them.
We saw that exact same mechanical efficiency a month later during the holiday fixtures. The 4-1 thrashing of Aston Villa on December 30th is the perfect case study.
Oh, that game was wild.
We have to set the context here, though. Villa came into the Emirates looking virtually unbeatable.
They were on, what, an 11-match winning streak?
Across all competitions, yes.
Yeah.
They were flying high and full of confidence.
And for the first 45 minutes, that confidence really showed. At halftime, it was 0-0. Arsenal actually looked vulnerable.
Yeah, Villa's counterattacks were dynamic. They were bypassing the single pivot, and the Emirates crowd was getting incredibly nervous.
But then the second half begins, and the tactical pressing just chokes the life out of Villa.
It wasn't a gradual shift either. It was a rapid-fire sequence of goals born from suffocating pressure.
3 minutes into the half, the 48th minute, Gabriel Magalhaes outmuscles Emiliano Martinez to nod home a Bukayo Saka corner.
Now Villa has to chase the game.
Which is exactly what the boa constrictor wants.
Exactly. Because Villa pushed up, Arsenal's transition game destroyed them.
Just 4 minutes later, right?
Yep. In the 52nd minute, Zubimendi intercepts a forced pass, strides forward, and hits this gorgeous outside of the boot strike into the bottom corner.
Such a beautiful goal.
And then in the 69th minute, Trossard hits a first-time finish that survives a lengthy VAR check.
And finally, Gabriel Jesus, just 55 seconds after coming off the bench, scores in the 78th minute.
4-0 in the blink of an eye.
Okay, hold on. I have to play devil's advocate here for a second because we are painting a picture of an invincible tactical machine.
Sure, go ahead.
But in that exact same Villa game, Ollie Watkins still managed to score in the 94th minute. And against Spurs, Richarlison scored from 45 yards out with a crazy chip over David Raya.
Right.
If this system is perfectly designed to deny opponents any oxygen, why are these glaring goals slipping through? Do the players just get bored and lose focus when they're up by 3 goals?
It's a completely fair pushback, and it's a question a lot of pundits raised during the season. But this is where we have to separate the statistical reality from the emotion of a viral highlight.
Okay, how so?
Well, anomalies and moments of sheer individual brilliance, like Richarlison spotting Raya a few steps off his line and executing a perfect 45-yard chip, they're always going to happen in football.
True, you can't predict everything.
Right. No system can account for a once-in-a-lifetime strike. But the overarching system suppresses high-value chances.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that. How does the system dictate the quality of a chance?
It comes down to what the analysts call their 4-D-2 high-pressing shape.
Another piece of tactical jargon. Explain it like I'm 5.
Okay, imagine the formation as 4 defenders at the back, a diamond shape of 4 midfielders in the center, and 2 strikers up top.
Got it.
When Arsenal presses the opponent's defense, those 2 strikers don't just run straight at the ball like headless chickens. They purposefully curve their runs to physically block off half of the football pitch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they force the opposing goalkeeper or center back to pass to one very specific side. Once the ball is channeled into that isolated zone, the diamond midfield swarms.
So Arsenal literally dictates the geographical direction of the play.
Exactly. So even if a stray goal slips through late in a game, that 4-D-2 structure minimizes the risk to the back line for 89 minutes. They force you to take terrible, low-probability shots, and occasionally a terrible shot miraculously goes in.
I see the logic, but a 38-game Premier League season is an absolute grind. It's a war of attrition.
It really is.
If the entire theory rests on ultimate control, what happens when an opponent simply refuses to be channeled into those traps? What happens when the machine sputters?
That is the ultimate stress test. An Arsenal system was pushed to its absolute breaking point during the grueling winter months.
The January 8th match against Liverpool at the Emirates immediately comes to mind.
Oh, yeah. That was a tough one.
It was an agonizing 0-0 draw. Arsenal had a massive chance to go 8 points clear at the top of the table.
Right.
To really put a stranglehold on the league, and they completely stalled out.
They did.
There is a staggering statistic from the live feed of that match. Arsenal did not register a single shot between the 45th minute and second half stoppage time.
Yeah.
An entire half of football at home with championship aspirations, and they didn't test the goalkeeper once.
It was a tactical masterclass in disruption by Liverpool, and it exposed the fragility of Arteta's setup.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Arne Slot, the Liverpool manager, didn't try to outpass Arsenal. He used a totally unorthodox pressing system.
He completely flipped the script.
He had Dominic Szoboszlai, an attacking midfielder, leading the press from the very front, essentially acting as a shadow against Zubimendi.
He neutralized the bouncer.
Exactly. Szoboszlai completely scrambled Arsenal's rhythm. You could physically see the frustration building on the pitch.
Oh, you could feel it through the screen.
Arsenal players were making these uncharacteristically panicked, misplaced passes because their primary safety valve was shut off.
And that match exposes the real glaring downside of Arteta's strict positional play. When you rely so heavily on structural certainty, you lose spontaneous problem solving.
Right.
Arsenal relies entirely on their wingers, Saka, Trossard, Madueke, to break down a defense one-on-one. If an opponent effectively double-teams those wide areas and neutralizes the wingers, Arsenal struggles immensely to score.
Especially because their primary striker, Victor Gyökeres, only had 11 goals in 31 games at that point in the season.
Yeah, he is a fantastic system player, but he is not an anomaly who overperforms his expected goals like an Erling Haaland.
He won't just invent a goal out of thin air.
Exactly. If the wingers are shut down, the entire attacking machine sputters out.
And it wasn't just on the attacking end either. The sources highlighted a very specific defensive vulnerability that haunted them in cup competitions, particularly defending crosses.
Yes, the man-to-man marking inside their own penalty box.
Which is unusual.
Very. Most teams defend zones in the box. They guard an area of grass. Arsenal defends man-to-man. You are tethered to a specific player.
Which sounds great in theory, but the analysts point out this is exactly what cost them 2 goals against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup final.
Because if you are tethered to a player, you can be manipulated.
Right. They just pull you out of position.
Exactly. If a Manchester City player makes a smart, decoy diagonal run away from the goal, an Arsenal defender follows them like a shadow, leaving a massive gaping hole right in front of their own net.
That's terrifying as a fan.
It is. In that Carabao Cup game against City, key defenders like William Saliba and Zubimendi were pulled completely away from the danger zone by decoy runs, and players like Nico O'Reilly just walked into the empty space for completely free headers.
So put yourself in the shoes of a fan sitting in the stadium during these tight, frustrating winter games. You're watching that 0-0 draw against Liverpool. You're watching them struggle to clear crosses against City.
It's a lot of stress.
How do you separate the sheer visceral anxiety of a 22-year title drought from the logical reality that the team is actually executing a highly successful, low-risk strategy? It must have been maddening.
It is entirely maddening, because the tension comes from muscle memory. For 2 decades, Arsenal fans have watched teams play beautiful, free-flowing, attacking football, only to drop crucial points in March and April because of a single moment of defensive chaos.
Right, they are traumatized by late-season collapses.
So when a game is 0-0 in the 80th minute against Liverpool, the crowd is collectively holding its breath, expecting disaster.
Yeah.
But Arteta was essentially asking them to ignore their trauma and trust the math, trust the structure, trust that a 0-0 draw is better than risking a 1-0 loss just to chase a highlight reel goal.
Which perfectly bridges us from those grueling, anxious winter months to the ultimate climax in May. The true test of a rigid system isn't in November. It's in the exhausting, high-stakes final days of the season.
The final sprint.
All of that tactical discipline, the suffocating scorelines, the 4-2 presses, it all culminated in one incredibly dramatic Tuesday.
Yeah, that Tuesday was something else.
Arsenal does their job on May 18th. They grind out a 1-0 win against Burnley at home, courtesy of a Kai Havertz header. It was classic, structured, low-risk Arsenal.
Get the goal, close up shop, strangle the game.
Exactly. But they don't actually win the lead on the pitch in front of 60,000 fans. They win it the next day, gathered around television screens at their Hertfordshire training ground, wearing training kits.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there's a profound poetic justice to how this title race ended.
Definitely.
Manchester City, the relentless juggernaut that has chased Arsenal down and broken their hearts in recent years, traveled to Bournemouth, needing a win just to push the title race to the final day of the season.
And anyone who follows the Premier League knows Bournemouth away is a total trap game. It is a tight pitch, a loud crowd, and they play aggressive football.
It is a nightmare fixture when you are under pressure. And Bournemouth strikes first.
Oh, that goal.
In the 39th minute, a 19-year-old named Junior Krupi curls a beautiful curling shot inside the far post. It's his 13th goal of the season, breaking the record for the most goals by a teenager in their debut Premier League campaign.
An absolute stunner. You can imagine the roar in the Arsenal training facility when that went in. City is reeling. They're throwing absolutely everything at Bournemouth in the second half.
They were desperate.
And of course, because it's Manchester City, they refuse to die quietly. Erling Haaland lashes in a vicious left-footed equalizer in the 95th minute to make it 1-1.
But the whistle blows shortly after. It's too late.
Yeah.
The 1-1 draw mathematically eliminates City. Arsenal's calculated rigidity outlasted City's firepower.
The emotional payoff of that moment is incredible to read about. Within minutes of the final whistle at Bournemouth, Declan Rice posts a photo on Instagram. He's posing with Havertz, Eze, Saka, Lewis Skelly, and Saliba.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
The caption just says, "I told you all, it's done." It's a direct callback to his battle cry earlier in the season when morale was low after losing the City.
The release of pressure inside that building must have been staggering. 22 years of ghosts finally put to rest.
Meanwhile, outside the Emirates Stadium in London, thousands of fans are spilling into the streets. Smoke bombs and fireworks are going off. Club legend Ian Wright is seen celebrating inside the empty stadium, just taking it all in.
It's beautiful.
And Mikel Arteta, the man who engineered this entire painful paradigm shift, officially becomes the second youngest manager ever to win the Premier League.
It is a monumental achievement, not just because he won the trophy, but because he fundamentally transformed the psychological DNA of the football club.
So to summarize this incredible, grueling journey for you, Arsenal didn't just buy a title this year, they engineered it.
They really did.
They traded the beautiful, unpredictable chaos of their past for a heavily structured, defensively transition-focused machine. a boa constrictor that literally choked the life out of the Premier League over 38 games.
Yeah.
They finished with 82 points and a dominant plus 43 goal differential.
They proved that in the modern tactical landscape, controlling the transition, those 3 seconds after the ball changes hands, is infinitely more valuable than just passing the ball around for 65% of the match.
So what does this all mean? For me, it means that having the knowledge of how a team actually wins, understanding the mechanics of the single pivot, visualizing the 42 press shrinking the pitch, seeing how a player like Trossard exploits the gaps, it makes watching the victory so much richer.
Absolutely.
You aren't just watching a ball go into a net, you're watching a grandmaster meticulously execute a 38-game chess match.
But before we wrap up today's deep dive, there's one final lingering thread we need to pull. Because while the league is wrapped up, the season itself isn't actually over.
Right, the elusive double is still on the line.
Exactly. Arsenal has clinched the domestic title, but, as the sources note at the very end of the tactical breakdown, they have a massive Champions League final against Paris Saint-Germain coming up on May 30th in Budapest.
Oh, wow.
And this raises a deeply provocative question for you to ponder.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Lay it on us.
We've spent this entire time establishing that a suffocating, low-risk, highly structured system works brilliantly over a 38-game league marathon. It smooths out variance, it guarantees you beat the teams you're supposed to beat,
Right.
but in the chaotic, do-or-die, highly emotional environment of a single European Cup final, against a team with the sheer unbridled firepower of PSG, will calculated rigidity be enough?
That is the million-dollar question.
Or, when their backs are against the wall in Budapest and they are down a goal with 10 minutes left, will Arsenal find themselves desperately missing the spontaneous creative chaos they so carefully engineered out of their game?
Wow. A 38-game calculated squeeze versus a 90-minute emotional shootout. That is the ultimate final exam for Arteta's boa constrictor. We'll have to see if the group holds when the lights are brightest. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking beyond the stat sheets, and we will catch you next time.